The men's conference race is sizzling, and a marquee matchup on the women's side. You're watching the NEC On the Run Hoops podcast, coming at you next. John Kelly Jr. alongside Ron Ratner for the NEC On the Run Men's Hoops podcast. And Ron, 2 weeks to go in league play. The drama continues. Robert Morris and LIU Brooklyn are atop the standings. The two-time NEC champ Blackbirds on a 4-game winning streak. The top 4 get home games. 8 teams qualify for the tourney. The rubber's hitting the road.
Yeah, I couldn't be more excited over what we're going to see over the next 2 weeks. We're certainly set up for a classic finish, for sure. You look at the top of the standings now, and it's like a lot of other conferences. You have a logjam up there at the top. But who's at the top? LIU and Robert Morris. Who would have thought? These are the same 2 teams that have made the last 2 NEC title games. The coaches predicted them to go 1-2. And it didn't look that way maybe a month ago, but there they are, 10-4, tied for first place. But, you know, they have company there. They're not alone. Right there, a half game back is Bryant. A game back is Wagner, who's red hot, as is Quinnipiac, who's only a game and a half behind. So you could see any of these teams in 2 weeks, you know, securing home court advantage and winning the regular season title. So the 4 teams, as you mentioned, will get home games. We have 5 teams, maybe more, but 5 teams for sure in that mix. So there's going to be a team in there that may not get a home game, which is really key in this conference. And even below those 5, you have your Sacred Heart and a Mount St. Mary's team that is on fire right now. So they're looking to move up into the top 4. Then you have sort of the third tier are the teams trying to qualify for the 8-team tournament. Central Connecticut, St. Francis College, and a Monmouth team that may have saved their season on Saturday by beating the Terriers, and they're right in the mix now. So we're going to have drama on all different levels as we move on the next couple weeks.
Well, last Thursday, we had some drama and some scoreboards being lit up. 2 40-point scorers, Ron. Wow.
Yeah, what a day this was. Sam Prescott on Mount St. Mary's and the great Kyle Vinales on Central Connecticut just went off. Sam Prescott scored 44 points for the Mount in a win, and 44 points. We haven't seen that a player score that many points in 10 years. So that was fantastic in its own right. It was a Mount D1 record. He hit 10 3-pointers, which is second on the NEC's all-time list for 3-pointers. He was featured on SportsCenter's top 10 that evening. So great day for Sam Prescott in the Mount. Meanwhile, Kyle Vinales, he's the 5th leading scorer in the nation. You knew he had one of these in him somewhere, and he went for a career-high 42 points. So it was a fantastic night for the NEC, and you know, I'm sure we'll be seeing more out of both players as they move on with their careers.
LIU Brooklyn guard Jason Brickman has been climbing up the all-time program history and conference charts in assists. Now he leads the nation in that exact category.
Yeah, it's sort of magical when you watch him sometimes, what his court vision and what he sees out there. And when he finishes up at LIU, he'll certainly be one of the all-time greats this conference has ever seen, if not the nation, because he's up to 650 assists already. Now, the 650 assists, he's only 150 shy of the NEC record. He's still a junior, and he's still got some time to go this year. The record has stood for 25 years now. Maris Drafton Davis holds the record with 804 assists. Barring injury to Jason, he should eclipse that at some point in early to mid next season, and then make a run at the all-time NCAA top 10 in assists. It's, you know, if he hits 950, which is possible, he'll be listed amongst your Bobby Hurley's, Chris Corciani, Sherman Douglas. These are great players. So, and then last week, he became the nation's assist leader for this season. He overtook Syracuse's Michael Carter-Williams. He's averaging 8.5 per game. So it's a fantastic year, and he's one of the reasons why LIU is you know, smoking hot right now.
Wagner College head basketball coach Bashir Mason got a big win over Bryant last Saturday, but also a great article people should check out in the Star-Ledger about him.
Yeah, Brendan Prutney of the Ledger did a fantastic profile of Bashir. It was a tough road growing up in Jersey City for him, tough area he grew up in. And he explains how he got out and went to college and became the first person in his family to graduate. But he wasn't satisfied with that. And he went on to pursue his master's degree in education when he got hired at Wagner as an assistant coach. And he's about to complete that. And they showed him in class, if you look at the photo gallery and how he blends in with the rest of the students. He's young. He's a first-year head coach. He's 29 years old. He's the youngest coach in the nation. And not only does he talk about pursuing his education, he talks about what's it like to be a first-year head coach on a contending program. And I thought it was one of the better articles I've read about an NEC player or coach.
Well, it's been a big year of scoring in the NEC, and Ron, 3 other members to the 1,000-point club.
Well, every week there's somebody new. So Kyle Vinyals, who we just spoke about, he on his big night, he reached 1,000 points. He did it in only 52 games, which is pretty impressive. It's almost 20 points a game over his first season and a half of college basketball. He now joins a list of, we have 12 players that are currently playing in the NEC that have scored 1,000 points. 8 of them have reached it this year. And in getting there in 52 games, it was the fastest NEC player to do it in about 9 years, since St. Francis University's Darshawn Lucky, who was a great scorer in his own right, did in 2004. Also joining him last week was Monmouth's Ed Waite and Quinnipiac's Ike Azotam. Both reached 1,000 on Saturday. So congratulations to all 3 of those guys.
Sunday, 8 p.m. on ESPNU. Get to your tube. 2 of the hottest teams in the conference, LIU and Wagner College, duke it out.
Oh, this is going to be a good one. Last year on ESPNU, these 2 teams played in Staten Island. It was a packed house. There was some great promotion heading into the game, and the game delivered on all accounts. LIU won at Wagner, and I thought that was one of the things that really helped boost them, as they moved on when towards the end of the season, towards their playoff run and winning a second straight title. This year, Wagner went into LIU and snapped their 31-game home win streak. So I think there's going to be motivation on both sides to get that win. We'll hear later in this podcast. I'll be talking with Jack Perri about the game. I think it's going to be. I think once again you're going to see a tremendous atmosphere at the Spiro Center. 2 really good teams just going at it. It's going to be a bit of a war, and it may determine somewhere down the line and where teams are seated as we head into the playoffs.
No drama is ever lacking in the NEC. Thank you, Ron. For Ron Ratner, I'm John Kelly for the NEC On the Run Men's Hoops Podcast. John Kelly Jr. alongside the always gregarious Ralph Fentry for this NEC On the Run Women's Hoops Podcast. And Ralph, Quinnipiac, the magic number is 1 for the conference title.
Well, they keep rolling, John. The Bobcats, 14 straight, 13-0 in Northeast Conference play. They've already locked up an NEC tournament berth, and as you mentioned, magic number 1 to clinch that number 1 seed in the Northeast Conference tournament. So Bobcats have been doing it all season long. You know what? At 22-2, John, forget about winning the NEC tournament. This is a team that really deserves some at-large consideration at this point, winning 22 of 24 games. One of those victories was against Big East member St. John's. Another victory was against a very formidable foe from the CAA in James Madison. They were the WNIT finalists last year. So the Bobcats are really putting together quite a resume, and should they not win the NEC tournament, they really deserve to be considered as an at-large selection. We'll see how that plays out, though. 13-0 in NEC play, 5 games remaining to put themselves in that elite class of teams who have run the table in the regular season. So let's keep an eye out for those Bobcats, John.
Right behind them and standing strong is Sacred Heart. And Ralph, talk about them.
Well, the Pioneers, they started 1-3. They haven't lost since. 9 in a row for Ed Swanson's team. He's getting great play out of his guards. You got the 2-guard, Gabby Washington, who was the Rookie of the Year last year. She's a sophomore. She averaged 21 a game this last week. Then you have Erica Norman. She is a point guard, the epitome of a point guard. She's not going to score the ball and really wow you, but she's going to manage the game and she's going to set up her teammates. She had a double-double on Monday night, 11 points, 10 assists for Norman. So the backcourt is going for Sacred Heart, and the Pioneers are winning games. So Quinnipiac, Sacred Heart right behind in second.
And guess what? Both of them will duke it out on television this Saturday at 1 p.m. Ralph, what a matchup.
Oh, I'll tell you, NECfrontrow.com is right where I'll be, 1 o'clock this Saturday. Saturday, Sacred Heart, Quinnipiac. This is a throwback game. Not only do you have so much going into this game. You have the undefeated Bobcats possibly looking to make NEC history, lock up the regular season title. You have Sacred Heart, who's playing really well. They're on a roll. But you have two programs whose history goes back a bit together. These two teams met in the 2006 NEC championship game, and they also clashed as Division II programs back in the 90s. Of course, they both entered the NEC 1 year apart. Quinnipiac came in 98, Sacred Heart in 99, and they've had some nice battles in this league ever since. So Quinnipiac, Sacred Heart, a lot of reasons to watch that one. NECfrontrow.com this Saturday, 1 o'clock. I'll be there. What about you, John?
You know I'll be there, too, on my computer. Well, also, Monmouth is making one heck of a playoff push, Ralph. And let's not forget Bryant as well. Get into this.
Well, Monmouth and Bryant both improving their position. As we know, in the Northeast Conference, only 8 teams make the postseason. 12 teams in the league, you have to be in that top 8 if you want to play in the March. So Monmouth, they've kind of quietly snuck up the ladder here. The last time we saw them on NEC TV, they lost to Sacred Heart. Since that game, they've won 5 of their last 6, and they are now in third place all alone at 9-4, only 1 full game back of Sacred Heart in second. So Monmouth has moved up the ladder, and they're in position right now to host a quarterfinal game in the NEC tournament at the very least. You mentioned Bryant. They're another team making moves. They've won back-to-back games, 4 of their last 5, and now they're in position to make the playoffs. Of course, this is their first year of Division I postseason eligibility. Well, they're tied for 7th place right now, and should the regular season, or would the regular season end today, Bryant would be in the postseason. So the Bulldogs are making moves. They're in position. Can they seal the deal and make it to the NEC tournament in year number 1?
Well, thank you. Always good insight, Ralph. For Ralph Ventry, I'm John Kelly Jr. for this NEC On the Run Women's Hoops podcast.
I'm Ron Ratner, NEC Associate Commissioner, and today I'm joined on the NEC On the Run podcast by Jack Perri, first-year head coach at LIU Brooklyn. Let me give you some background on Jack. He's in his 8th year at LIU. His last 5 as an associate head coach under Jim Ferry. Blackbirds won back-to-back NEC titles, and while Jack was an assistant, and they're once again in the mix with March Madness just around the corner. Jack, thanks for spending some time with us today.
Thanks, Ron. Thanks for having me.
All right, so let's get things started by asking you this. You've only moved 1 seat down the bench. That's a big chair you're sitting in now. What are some of the biggest adjustments you faced from going from the first lieutenant to the head coach this year?
You know what? It's funny. I didn't think I would have this many things happen in my first year. Everybody asked me that question, and to be honest, I'm like, hey, you know what? I've done it before when I was Division III head coach, and I figured I was confident. Jimmy let me do so much when I was the associate head coach, and I'd been here so long with so many seniors and things. I didn't think the adjustment was going to be that difficult. And then we had a lot of issues starting in September, and this team has had a lot of adversity. And it's funny, I would even go back and ask Jimmy and call him and get some guidance from him, and he had no idea because there were just some things that we hadn't faced before, and I certainly hadn't faced even as an assistant. So whenever you think you've figured it all out, you certainly haven't, and there's been a lot of things off the basketball court that have been the biggest challenge.
Looking back on the last 2 years and all the success LIU has had,
I think you guys have sort of went against the conventional wisdom, the so-called, not saying you guys don't play defense, but the defense first wins championships mentality. LIU's been ranked at the top of the NEC. The NCAA, near the top of the NCAA scoring charts 3 straight years now. What's it that makes your system click? Maybe it hasn't worked for others.
Well, you know what? It's funny. We recruit a certain kind of kid, and even when I was the assistant and I was the recruiting coordinator, my whole thing to Jimmy even was, hey, let's recruit most talented kids we can find athletically, and kids that can all pass, dribble, and shoot, no matter what position they are, forwards, guards, whatever, and let's be aggressive that way, and then we'll get them as good as we possibly can defensively, and that's really how it started. And we've been fortunate. We have some really, really talented kids. You have guys like Jamal Osware, C.J. Gardner, Jason Brickman. These kids are really, really talented. And are we the best defensive team? No, but are we getting better? And have we had to kind of change a little bit even this year? I mean, if you look back at our last 11 games, we're holding teams to 42% field goal defense, which, yes, I understand it's not under 40%, but that's a lot better than where we were at. We're out rebounding teams at a high level, and one of our philosophies is always the free throws and doing a good job of limiting our fouls, and we've done a good job of that again this year.
What do you think accounts for some of the improvements on the defensive end of the floor during this sort of hot stretch you guys have been on?
Well, I guess it's just been more of a mentality. I mean, we've had to grind it out. When you're 0-3 and you have to look yourself in the mirror a little bit, and we really struggled. I mean, we were really poor defensively, and it never mattered. Like you said, the last 2 years, it just didn't matter. When you had Julian Boyd along with Jamal Osware, it would be fine if the other team scored, because we're just going to throw the ball back up there, and we're going to get our points, and teams won't be able to score with us. You take Julian Boyd out of the mix, and it's a little bit different. And our guys had to take a look in the mirror, and they, to their credit, they listened to us, and they said, okay, we're going to buy in, and we really changed a few things defensively and really worked more on, making sure our guys were aggressive contesting shots, because teams were shooting such a high percentage against us. We were constantly charting that in practice, and our guys kind of stepped up to that challenge every day, and we got better and better and better, and it's kind of grown on these guys to get excited about getting stops. So that they can get out and run.
So you just mentioned Julian Boyd. Let's go back to the night of December the 12th. It was a slow start to the year. Your team's starting to gel. You're down in Texas. You're blowing out Rice. 4 straight wins. And then Julian goes down, season-ending injury. What was your initial thought when he went down? And then when you heard the diagnosis, what was your reaction then?
It was interesting. I kind of figured he was going to get that diagnosis. I had done that when I was in college myself, and I saw the way he reacted as soon as he went down, and he grabbed right for his knee, and I'm like, that's it. And it was obviously a little depressing for everybody involved, and we felt awful for Julian. But like we said, we had a lot of adversity going from September 1, and we knew we had to continue to go on and hope for the best for Julian. Obviously, if it had happened a game after, we wouldn't even have the ability to think about a 6th year for him. But with that being said, and he fits the criteria, we're hoping that we can get him back next year. And he's already working his tail off trying to get his range of motion and all that stuff going on with his ACL, and hopefully he'll be back by next year.
How hard is it to reinvent yourself as a team midstream without he's such a transcendent player, Julian Boyd. How hard is it in the end of December, you're headed into conference play, to kind of have to maybe start over a little bit?
Yeah, well, you know what? The one good thing is that we do still have several seniors. You throw Booker Hux and Kenny Oniechi as the main cogs that are replacing him, along with a freshman who I feel has great potential in E.J. Reed, and you still have some other pieces. We didn't have to go overboard with it. It was just tinker on the defensive end, make sure, again, guys, we're focused on that end. The offensive end, we still have the pieces to we're still scoring at a high rate. We're still scoring. We were 82 game last year, and this year we're probably at 79, so a little bit less, but I think we're pretty efficient on the offensive end. And guys have stepped up. Booker Hucks he's been great. Kenny gives us some good minutes as well, and he's never going to be as healthy as he once was. And EJ's given his fair share of good games as well. So, you kind of rotate those bodies in there and continue to try and do the things that we've always done.
Was there maybe a singular turning point to your season after you struggled a little bit after Julian went down?
I struggle to figure out what that turning point was. We kind of were taking one game at a time, and I think after that Wagner game, which was clearly our worst game of the year probably, our guys really stepped up in the Mount St. Mary's game. So I thought our effort was great in that game, and then you take it one step further, and we get a fortunate win at FDU. When we made some huge plays. Brandon made a huge play at the end of the game just to give us a chance to win that game. Maybe it's those two games, and then we just kind of slowly gained some confidence throughout the remaining of the year. And I don't necessarily know that there was one game that was a turning point. It's just kind of evolved.
Well, without a doubt, LIU's one of the most entertaining teams I've witnessed in all my time here. I think a lot has to do with your personnel right now. I look at a Jamal Oswer, CJ Garner, and they're about as unorthodox as players you'll see. They got a unique skill set. They work angles really well. When you're on the recruiting trail, and you've been out there for a while, are you looking for players with unique skill sets outside the conventional mode?
Well, I've briefly told you about what we look for, and Jamal's he's a special talent. For a kid his size, he was a pretty thin kid coming out, but you knew he had some toughness. His team had won 2 championships when he was state championships when he was in high school with C.J. Gardner, and we were fortunate to get him. He had a visit set up with Xavier. He went to Xavier, but they thought he was too undersized to be a 4-man, so we were fortunate enough to get him, and we got him pretty late. And then, CJ was another unique one because he was Jamal's buddy, and he was leaving South Alabama right after we got Jamal, and we needed a point guard, and we went down and saw him work out, and we were like, all right, this kid is really fast. He kind of reminded us of a kid that Mount St. Mary's had in Jeremy Good, and we're like, all right, this could certainly work, and we were more fortunate than anything else. I've been looking now, trying to find those two guys, and haven't had a whole lot of success trying to replicate those two guys. I don't think we'll be able to do that. We might have to try a little bit different style, but not necessarily different style, but obviously we won't have those two guys after this year.
All right, let's get to the Jason Brickman part of the podcast here. All right, the guy's a tremendous weapon. He makes things out of nothing, gets you a lot of easy buckets each game. When you were down in Texas scouting him 3 years ago, here's a 2-part question. Did you envision what he would become, the top-ranked assist guy in the nation? And there are times that you sit there or stand there on the sidelines. Are you just absolutely in awe when he kind of gets it going?
Oh, the first one is obviously I thought he'd be the assist leader in the country. Obviously not. We thought he would be a really good player. And it was funny. We went down to Texas and I saw him, and then I'm like, Jimmy, let's come see this kid, and we're sitting there and nobody else is in the stands, and we're like, oh my God, this kid's really good, and we're looking around. We go to the next game, still nobody around, because he kind of was at like a smaller AAU team. So we, again, pretty fortunate, and we got him up. He was our first visit that year, and luckily he liked it enough, and we got him here. And then the second part to your question, he is just he's awesome. He is fun to coach, and he makes you look pretty good. But obviously, he's just a super talent that has the ability to do a lot of different things, and he makes guys look good.
When you begin your shopping for your next point guard, now are you drawn to players that are a similar style, or what's your thoughts? I know it's gonna be hard to replicate what you have now.
God. You're not lying, and he's not out there. He's not out there. It's just not. It's gonna be different, and it's gonna be a sad day when he leaves as well. But we'll continue to try and find that next Jason Brickman. I'm not necessarily under the impression that I'll be able to find that, but hopefully we'll find somebody that brings some really good qualities as well.
Well, one of the freshmen that you brought in this year, you mentioned earlier, E.J. Reed, has really come alive, during the conference. Has he met and exceeded expectations you had when you signed him up last year?
Yeah, he really has. And, the thing about EJ, he's got this great personality. He's got this, he's got a great motor, and he's got a great personality. Every day in practice, it's infectious. He just, he brings it every day, and that's unique for one, and two, it's refreshing. He's got to mature a little bit. He gets silly and goofy every once in a while, but like I said, it's refreshing, and the fact that he's coachable, and he also has some unbelievable potential. I think his length, his ability to run, his ability to step out and shoot, and also finish around the basket at a high level. So I think he's going to be a good player in this league, and yeah, he's exceeded expectations, and I'm hoping to see him continue to do that.
All right, so this weekend we have this ESPN-U game coming up Sunday at Wagner at 8 p.m. Now, last year, LIU and Wagner met on ESPN. Fantastic game. It was a war. Packed house at the Spiro Center. You guys came out on top. Then they came to your place earlier this year. They ended your 31-game home win streak. So I think there's certainly motivation on both sides, aside from the fact that everybody's battling for home games and the regular season championship. What can we expect on Sunday?
Ron, you're asking me a question when I got a game on Thursday against a really tough opponent, so I haven't really put a ton of thought into Wagner.
We're always promoting.
With Wagner, it's always going to be a great and intense matchup. Like you said, I'm assuming it's going to be a packed house again. They do a great job over there drawing fans, and it's going to be intense. It's going to be a war. I know our guys will be motivated for the simple fact that we're trying to accomplish something special in this season, and I'm sure they're trying to do the same thing over there. So it's going to be it should be a great game.
You mentioned Mount St. Mary's. Well, we're definitely seeing parity in this league where anybody can beat anybody at any given night. I want to throw out a couple of teams to you, some contenders. Just give me the first thought that comes into your head about them. Let's start with the Mount who you face on Thursday.
They can shoot the ball. They have a lot of guys that can shoot the ball, and then they also obviously play a unique style defensively, where they try and get you playing fast and aggressive, and it's very unique. It's very different, and he's done a great job there.
Yeah, that should be a fun one, as was your game a couple weeks ago with Bryant, one of the best games I've seen all year. What were your thoughts on them?
Yeah, they're talented. I mean, you talk about the kid Starks and Dobbs as well, and Maynard. You have three guards that are as good as any. I keep telling my assistants, go find me some guards like those guys have. They're really, really talented on the offensive end and can score with anybody.
How about a team coming on strong lately, Quinnipiac?
Yeah, we haven't seen them in a while, so I haven't seen much of them. But you know what they're going to do? They're going to rebound the ball on both ends. They play physical basketball, and it looks like they're playing really well at the right time, which Coach Moore usually gets his teams to do. And I'm sure they're going to be one of the other teams that has a chance to win this whole thing.
And finally, how about Robert Morris? I know, very familiar with them. Had a great game with them a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, no, I mean, again, another great coach in Eddie Toole. They do a great job. They've had issues, it sounds like, with injuries and things like that, but they've just been consistent with their effort, and they're always a tough team, and they shoot better than they've done in the past, and they're a big time 3-point shooting team. That seems like it's kind of the common theme this year has been better scoring teams and certainly better shooting teams.
I have so many more questions, but I know you got to get going, so I want to give you one more here. We'll wrap it up. Okay, I asked something similar to this to Andy Toole a couple weeks ago. LIU, I did my math. You're 42-8 over your last 50 NEC games. That's a pretty remarkable 3-year run. What, in your mind, what's the secret at this level? And it's hard, I think, at this level to sustaining success when you'll have some key players graduating this year and next. What's the key to maintaining that level?
Well, I think there's two things. One, you have to continue to recruit good basketball players. Obviously, you need talent in order to have success, and then you have to believe in something, and you have to have a certain niche and a philosophy, and you got to continue to get those guys to buy into that philosophy. And if you can do that and you can sustain that, then you're going to continue to have success.
That's great. So we're going to wrap things up here. We'll see Coach Perri and the Blackbirds Sunday night, 8 p.m. on ESPNU against local rival Wagner. They'll also be playing the Mount on Thursday, that's a biggie too.
Yes, it is.
Jack, thanks for joining us on NEC on the Run, and the best of luck the remainder of the season.
Appreciate it, Ron. Thanks.
This is the NEC 9, the top 9 plays on the hardwood. Kicking us off at number 9, we have this great Sacred Heart sequence, starting with LeRae Etienne's block and ending with this Kylie Evans jumper. At number 8, on the night he scored his 1,000th point, Quinnipiac's Ike Azotam slams home this feed from Evan Conti. Number 7, St. Francis Brooklyn's Jessica Kaufman with the pretty backdoor feed to Leah Fetchko.
Has been not doing a great job of shooting.
Number 6, we have Central Connecticut State's Detroit combo. Kyle Vinales setting up Matt Hunter for the emphatic jam. At number 5, LIU playmaker Jason Brickman doing what he does best, finding Kenny Onyechi with a no-look wraparound. The number 4 play, Sacred Heart's Blair Konachevsky with the acrobatic layup and one. Talk about red hot. Number 3 is devoted to Sam Prescott's extraordinary 44-point, 10 3-pointer evening against Bryant. More Sam Prescott at number 2. This time he soars high for the alley-oop from Kelvin Parker. Capping us off at number 1, he's back again. Wagner's DeJuan Anderson with his thunderous jam against Central Connecticut that earned him another SportsCenter Top 10 mention.
As a 2-on-1, look out, Anderson on the ferocious dunk and a foul.
Well, that wraps up this week's edition of the NEC On the Run Hoops podcast. I'm John Kelly Jr. Come back next week on NECFrontRow.com.